What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 130 of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. My name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am documenting my journey in real estate and business and also talking a little bit about travel hacking and personal finance. You can find me everywhere at leadway.wealth on Instagram and TikTok. And then you can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and Podbean. So today's topic is going to be finding the riches are in the niches. So you've probably heard this quote quite a bit. And, the book I'm reading right now is The Common Path to Uncommon Success. So actually, let me read it right here. So The Common Path to Uncommon Success. I picked this up a while ago. I think I heard Pace Morby talk about it on some podcasts. And, chapter 2 right here, discover your niche. Two of these quotes really stood out to me right away. And I'm like, man, this would be a really good episode because I feel like that's something that I've done, throughout my life, whether it's pole vaulting or punting and kicking and football. And then, it's kind of went into real estate. And that's what I'm really trying to figure out right now is where is that niche in the real estate space to be able to, be successful. So, I wanted to bring out the two quotes. I wanted to tell a little bit about my story and then how it relates into real estate. So the quote here is, if everybody is doing it one way, there's a good chance you can find your niche by going exactly in the opposite direction. So that quote is by Sam Walton. So this quote was kind of backed up last week when we were on a call with Ryan Dossie in the Deal Flow mentorship. And, what he talked about was, his thing is direct mail from Ballpoint Marketing. So he's the owner of it and he grew it. And what he was talking about is, cold calling and direct mail is, something that, most real estate people, wholesalers, that's what they do to be able to go and find leads. So normally if everybody's all hopping on one, cold calling, this is what's really hyped up, you should probably be doing direct mail. And then, the inverse goes the same, but those are the two most popular. And then listening to another podcast, it's like, all of these people, are into these mentorship programs. So I really want to highlight like Pace Morby's group, Sub 2, Subject 2 got really, really, really popular when he started teaching it at a really big scale. And, I was a little bit of part of that group. It's like, okay, well, I want to make money quick. I heard this is what you can do. So I went, on his YouTube channel, learned how to do it, read the books, and then I went out and did it. So his army basically is going out and doing the same exact thing and just at scale because, there's so many people in that community going for that same exact thing. So it got really popular to where it's like, oh, well, call the agent, see if they're interested. So now when I call the agent, it's like, yeah, dude, you're the 20th person to call me today. So it's not specifically a niche anymore, and it's not super specialized because so many people are doing it. Now, the quality of how those people are doing it is going to be the really big question, because if you can get really good, establish yourself as a brand and a trusted person in the community, that's how you're really going to be able to stand out. So, that's an interesting thing to think about as we keep going. But I wanted to break down this other quote right here is, when you try to resonate with everyone, you'll resonate with no one. So that's from John Lee Dumas. So when you're trying to appeal to everybody, you're probably going to be appealing to nobody. So I would think of this as when you're building your own business, it's like, oh, well, I'm a real estate business. It's like, okay, well, do you wholesale? Do you flip? Do you do subject to? That's such a broad range. And every coach that I've ever listened to on this subject is you need to get very, very specialized and kind of cut the other stuff. So making this a track and field reference, when I was pole vaulting and, running some other events, it's like, that's really pulling me away from pole vaulting, because if I go run another event, I'm going to be pretty tired. And then, coming back to pole vault, I'm going to have no energy. I'm not going to be jumping very well. But say, let's ditch those running events and let me really focus on pole vault, and you're probably going to be able to get better results. So let's hop into my story a little bit. So exactly what I was talking about with pole vaulting, that's something that when I was in 7th grade, nobody else was doing it. So we get out there for the first year, there's 20 girls and no guys. So they kind of come and say to everybody in this meeting and say, hey, there's no guys doing pole vault. Does anybody want to try it? So obviously being single at that time, I'm like, yep, I like my odds there. So that's how I got started in pole vaulting, but ended up loving the sport and then realized oh my gosh, there's not really a whole lot of other people doing this. So, even if you get a little bit of coaching and get, a foot or two above the rest at that age, everybody's going about 6 or 7 feet. And if you can go 8 or 9, in 7th or 8th grade, you're going to be a step above the rest. And that's what kind of carried me through pole vaulting throughout college because, it's such a niche sport because there's a lot of popular people doing it once you get into it. But when you're at that level, it's there's a couple people here and there, but you're probably competing against 5 to 10 people rather than all the other runners on the track where they just kind of throw people in. So it's very niche and you're able to stand out, and then you're able to get that specialized coaching, bring you above the rest. And that's how I ended up getting a scholarship. And through college, which is tying it all into real estate here, I was able to save that money and then be able to buy that first house. So again, let's look at it as what I was doing in football. So back when I was playing midget football, 9 and 10 years old, nobody else was doing kicking and punting. It was hey, pick this guy, you're in. So I realized if the only way I could start on varsity is if I was doing the kicking and punting and got really, really good. So started practicing. And then I did that all throughout probably 9 or 10 years old through my first year of college at Lenoir-Rhyne. So being able to do that, finding that specialized position, and then being able to get really consistent at it, maybe not the best, definitely not the best, but being able to get consistent enough at it to be able to put yourself over the rest. So that's what I'm looking for in real estate right now. It's okay, where is that niche? What is going to be able to put me above the rest? And I think being able to be a flipper and saying, hey, this is what I'm 100% focused on during this year, and then being able to post it on the podcast about what I'm doing, what I'm learning, and then be able to tie it all back in, because you can go back to my first episode where I'm just talking about where I'm at. I literally just quit my job when I started recording this podcast and got back from a week in Colombia with my then girlfriend, now wife, and then, basically documented my first flip, what I was doing, cold calls, basically to what we're doing now, to where we have 5 current renovations going on. So, full circle moment there. And it's really cool to be able to see that progress. And I think that's what's going to be able to put me above, the ordinary people, because I'm posting it out there. People are going to know in this area, it's who's flipping, and it comes across their TikTok profile or through their feed. I don't consume it, so I'm not an expert on TikTok, but I do a little bit more on Instagram. But because I'm documenting this entire process through my whole, from the beginning, that's going to be able to put me above the rest. And then how am I going to be able to not necessarily grow it and make money out of it, but be able to still document, grow, and then be able to show everybody it's hey, this is how I thought, 3 months ago. Here's the book I read. Here's the 2 or 3 books I read, and this completely changed my mindset to where here's how I'm doing it now, and here's why this is a little bit of a safer investment, especially if I'm going towards looking for private money lenders, which I've done before. Because being able to read 2 or 3 books, I think that's completely changed my mindset, especially listening to Profit First or reading it. And then, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought as I'm watching this truck back into my garbage can on the road here. Struggling a little bit. But anyway, but yeah, being able to, really niche down. And that's what he talked about in this chapter as, when you find your niche, you really got to go even deeper than that to where it gets really, really tight. And the conversations that I've been having with my real estate partner lately is, it's like, we need to make cold calls. It's like, okay, but to who? We need to be able to get really, really specific with that list. And that's how we're going to be able to separate ourselves. Because if we're just calling, random list, it's like we're not doing anything. We're just making calls to make calls. It's like we have to find active sellers who want to be able to sell their house cash. Doing that on an expired listing, we're probably going to get a different group of sellers that it's probably not going to be the same thing. They're probably not going to be houses to flip or wholesale unless you're able to do subject to. So if we're trying to buy houses cash and wholesale, that strategy just doesn't make sense. So we have to really get niche down. It's like, I'm all about cold calling, but we need a really tight list on exactly what we're looking for, and then let's go. So that's my way of tying it all back into real estate, that the riches are in the niches. And that's something that, you hear all of these rich people talk about, is that they got really, really specific, and that's when they got and made their money. So, that's what I'm really looking for right now in real estate. So if you're still listening to this podcast, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. We want to be able to grow this podcast as I'm bringing new guests on who are going to be able to provide a little bit more insight to the real estate side, the business side, and what people are doing to be able to grow their wealth. So if you tune in, not this coming Friday, but it'll be episode 133, we'll be having another interview on. So make sure you tune in for the next couple episodes and that one. So thank you for tuning in. This was episode 130 of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. My name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I will see you on the next one.